Hello and welcome.
Gracias.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning to you all, and welcome to the University of Texas at Arlington. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Cheryl Mitchell, and I am an art historian in the Art and Art History department here. And I also have the honor of being the collection specialist who manages the UTA Fine Art Collections, as well as the founder and lead instructor for the Museum Studies minor. So, very exciting. Thank you. Woo. I need to take a deep breath. This has been 3 years in the making, y'all. I launched the Museum Studies minor course, the very first one, in 2017, with the dream of creating a career-focused educational program for undergraduates that revolved around direct, hands-on, experiential training that could enhance their employability and that would lead these students in bolstering our already very strong art and art history department here. In the fall of 2022, our program was officiated as a full minor that is available to students all across campus. Not only art and art history, but we have art education, anthropology, archaeology, history, and last year we had our first electrical engineer who wanted to learn immersive experiences in museums. So this is a very multifaceted, really strong program here. And I had hoped that it would really assist the students, and they quickly found employment, not only here across DFW, but all across the nation. Now many of them going on to careers and even to graduate programs further. Many of those students are here today, along with our current students as well. I'm exceptionally proud to be here with you to celebrate their great work that has been done by several cohorts of the Museum Studies students over this 3-year, multi-phase, multi-semester project. And of course, I designed this in collaboration with one of the greatest group of people I have ever met in my entire life, the Texas Art Collectors Organization, that we lovingly call TACO. 44 students from 5 separate course groups work together like a well-oiled machine in planning, curating, designing, and implementing the incredible exhibition you're here to see today. If you could see what I see, a new generation explores Texas art. I was first introduced to TACO in the spring of 23 via colleagues who were keen to support my efforts to connect our students with prominent private collections of the DFW metropolis. And I very quickly realized the potential of our collaborative partnership and that this would have an opportunity to build a very influential community network system for them. And that is the biggest part of my goals in working with the students, is not just here when they're here, but also afterwards. And many of them jokingly call me school mom. And I do stalk them on Instagram to see what they're doing and what's going on. And they are just out there living their dreams and doing the work, all of our future art world professionals. Now, this project began, as you will see through some of the imagery today, through a series of visits to TACO collectors' homes. Then, of course, moving quickly into deciding, all right, we're going to need to do an open call. So many TACO members answered our request. Over 200 artworks submitted for consideration that had to be refined and curated down to now 55 artworks through 36 lenders in what you see available in just that one exhibition alone. So an exceptional opportunity for them, working closely with myself, other colleagues like Dr. August Jordan Davis here, who's going to moderate for us, Lilia Kudelia, Assistant Director Patricia Healy. So many incredible faculty and staff here at UTA have really assisted in this project. And of course, also through TACO, not only our 2 guest speakers, but I see many faces that I know and love in the crowd and that have helped us and assisted in this project. Now, in the end, after curating the inventory, they very quickly began to work on their proposals, and you'll see some of that in the imagery as well, doing a presentation, kind of debating and then refining those. And really, one of the biggest messages that came across in the themes was home is where the art is. And I think that's truly the motto for TACO particularly. Now, after finalizing that inventory, student interns worked over the summer to research and begin visualizing aesthetics for what you see. And then we hired an incredible graduate, an alumna of UTA, Rebecca Barnard, who created and designed our wonderful catalog that's available for you today. Now, the rewarding nature of this partnership has become very clear to us, and it has already seen prosperous results for our students, for TACO, and for UTA. And we look forward to continuing this partnership and are exceptionally proud to serve as an example, not only for Arlington, but for Texas, maybe even for the nation, because you know, Texans, we go big, for collaborative curation within the community. And it is our hope that this project can act as a map or a guide, and that can then be used for other universities or other organizations to partner with TACO and with many other private collections as we move forward into the future. So without further ado, before we get started, I just want to ask, are any of my students here today, not only those working, but also returning graduates and participants? Please raise your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give them a round of applause? Without them, this would not have happened. All right, and so now I have also the pleasure and honor of introducing you to not only the director of the gallery at UTA, but also the chair of our Art and Art History Department, Dr. August Jordan Davis. It's fun.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for coming to the gallery at UTA here at the Department of Art and Art History. And thank you so much, Cheryl, for the wonderful introduction to today's event. We are so pleased to welcome all of you to celebrate with us the culmination of this multi-year project to bring the wonderful work that is held within all of your purview here to a wider public audience, thanks to the efforts that our students have undertaken under the direction of Cheryl and in dialogue with several of us here in the department. Let me share with you a little bit about what we do here. As Cheryl said, my name is Dr. August Jordan Davis. I'm originally from Dallas, and I did my first degree in studio arts and art history at UNT. And then I decided I'm going to take a gap year, and I'm going to travel for a year in England and Europe. And that accidentally became 25 years of studying and teaching in England. And I had a really wonderful opportunity in 2018 to come with my young family to visit my parents here for Christmas. And the Brexit vote had just happened. And my husband, who's British, said, you know, August, you should just pay attention and see if any interesting jobs come up, because we've had such a marvelous time on this trip in Dallas. Maybe it's time for a new adventure. And 2 weeks later, we saw this job advertised here at UTA, and I said, oh my goodness, it might be fate. And so it was so wonderful when in 2019, I was able to move here and join as the chair of the Department of Art and Art History. And a couple of years later, when our previous marvelous director of the gallery, Benito Huerta, retired, I also assumed the responsibility as the director for the gallery. And it has been really wonderful to look at how we can expand our thinking about the kinds of exhibitions that we present through the gallery. And the gallery is a contemporary art gallery, that has a mission aimed at bringing really interesting and diverse contemporary art to our wider audience. And so it's here that we are looking at what are rich and unique ways we can continue that mission, but also highlight artists that maybe haven't had a place here at UTA previously, or offer opportunities for students to get involved and extend their professional development while they're still studying with us. So Cheryl came to me a few years ago and said, I've had this marvelous opportunity to attend Caseta, and I have met members of the Texas Art Collectors Organization, aka TACO, and they're really interested in thinking about how they can bring opportunities for students to engage with their rich collections and have a wider audience through public presentations for those wonderful artworks. Is there anything that we could do that might be a collaboration that would tick all of those boxes and make use of this beautiful 4,000 square foot gallery that we're so blessed to have here at UTA? And so I said, well, this is really intriguing. I would like to hear more. And we had a wonderful meeting, and Fred and Russ came, and I can still picture vividly the day that we all met together to look at what might this involve and how could we have this really driven through a student opportunity. Because that was the thing that was so exciting to us, is the idea that students would have this direct engagement with art of the highest quality, and that they would be developing something so important for their resume while they were still studying here, that they would be integral to the presentation of a public exhibition of artworks of this caliber. And so we worked through all the logistics of thinking, what will this need to make it actually a reality? And Cheryl has been monumental as not just the conceiver of how this sits within the museum studies opportunity, but as a project manager undertaking what is a really Herculean task to make sure that the students had such a broad access to hundreds and hundreds of artworks in the collectors' homes, which is such a unique opportunity. And I think that really is the thing that got the students so excited, was this chance to see how collectors have their interests reflected in the choices they make and the way that you all live with them in your home. And that idea of the home as a rich place for engaging with art was so exciting for students. And we wanted to think about how could that also influence the exhibition that you're enjoying today. And it has been a marvelous opportunity for myself to work with Cheryl and the students over these many semesters to look at the works that they were identifying for the project and to have a dialogue about what is involved in a contemporary curatorial project and how do we have to navigate some of the important art historical questions that help put those connections between the works. So what goes on the wall next to what other work? And what kind of story are you trying to tell? And so the wonderful thing that we got to do recently was work for a whole day with the students as a whole, the current cohort of students who were finishing this part of the project, to design what you're seeing in the gallery right now, and to think about the layout and to have really intensive discussions about the combination of practical and conceptual historical questions that have to come into concert with one another when you're designing an exhibition like this. And they were marvelous. We had so much fun. We got tickled because everybody would engage with this with such a spirit of joy. And we had fun trying to imagine, well, if we put this one next to this one, we can see there's a connection here based on maybe the content of the art or the color palette that artist was working with, and this artist worked with a similar one. But then sometimes we would get tickled because maybe the connection, made some kind of funny pattern, and you thought, well, no, that's not going to work. And so they just were marvelous, and we had so much fun working together. And there was a real seriousness of purpose, but such a joy in the process. And the students worked so beautifully to think through the layout that you see today. And I'm thrilled that all of you are here to enjoy this with us, but also materially made this a possibility for our students to enjoy this opportunity that they may otherwise not have had you all not been generous as TACO members. So I wanted to say a very big thank you, and we're looking forward to chatting with Fred and Russ to talk a bit more about the process of both what TACO collectors undergo in thinking about how to build a collection, but also how that's informed this project. So thank you very much. Sure. Okay, so I'm gonna ask both Fred and Russ if you would kick us off by talking a little bit about TACO as an organization, but also how you came to TACO and what it means to be a member.
Do you want to start or you want me to?
I am the president.
Okay. He's former president. No, I think the way to start off is by looking back at the mission statement of Taco, which everybody in here probably has memorized it. Is that correct? I don't know if I need to repeat it, but um, the mission statement is to enhance the appreciation and understanding of early Texas art, and it's through the education, study, debate, yeah, thank you, and exhibition. And I think right here we are hitting a grand slam with everything here. So this is the mission statement of Taco, and this has kind of been one of the dreams of Taco for a long time. So I wanted to tell the mission statement. Now, Russ, I'll turn it over to you.
So the question, August, was how did we get started? How did I get started with Taco?
And what does it mean to be a Taco member?
Okay. Well, I got started. I actually started not collecting art. I've been collecting stuff since I was a kid. Okay, stamps, coins. It's genetic, I think, at this point. But I started collecting antique furniture for a while, and I realized what I had hanging on the wall really didn't go with that antique furniture. And then one day I saw a little blurb in the newspaper. It said, David Dyke Fine Art Auction Preview. And I thought, wow, that looks, I don't know anything about Texas art, but I'll go check that out. So I did, and it was a Taco meeting. And that was how I first got connected to Taco. And I was just a member for a number of years. And then I was asked to join the board and served in different roles. As Fred said, at one point I was a president. So, but it's been great. It's great from the standpoint of learning about art. It's great from a relationship standpoint. You're seeing people that you've known. I've known some of these people now for 15 or 20 years. And you look forward to reconnecting with them, and you always have a little art gossip. You get anything new, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about that for me.
And I think as a collector, everybody has somewhat of a similar start, because I started collecting books, and I realized, books are really hard to appreciate. They're on the shelf. You just see little fractions of the books, and I'm a visual person, and I became drawn to art. And I started out actually collecting regionalist arts, Thomas Hart Benton and Grant Wood and some of that school. And I happened to come across an estate sale that I drove by, and it was a nice house, and they said something on the sign about art. And I walked in. Well, I saw a Jerry Bywater's lithograph, which his granddaughter will appreciate there. And I saw the name. Well, I liked the art. I saw the name, and I said, that rings a bell. And I went back, looked them up, and I realized we had an SMU connection. And that just triggered something of, well, let's collect something that is closer to you, that really means something. And so I thought, well, maybe there are Texas artists. Well, I ended up meeting somebody, and he told me about Taco. And so in 2008, I went to my first Taco meeting and saw all the Texas art and met all these other collectors who were passionate about it. And that triggered everything. And for better, for worse, my wife would weigh in on, what that triggered. But it's been a wonderful experience. And as Russ said, you make these connections, and you always have similar interests to talk to with other people. So it's really an opportunity to make some very nice long connections with people and to appreciate what other people have and what they learn and then what you learn.
So, in relationship to that wonderful way in which you both have been energized by Taco and the mission that it holds, and of course, you mentioned the exhibition component of the mission, what really brought you into the idea of reaching out to UTA and thinking about the opportunity that might be possible here?
So I'll talk about that. Really, a person we should be recognizing, I don't think he's here, is Jeff Sohn,
Yes.
former
Yes.
president of TACO. He's still on our board. He had for years been wanting to do something with an educational institution. And we did try to do some things, which for whatever reason were not very successful. Now, we did a great exhibition down at Texas A&M
Yep.
in 2021, I think it was. And so that was really nice. But we really wanted to try to do something closer to home. Anyway, I was thinking, well, how could we do that? And, Fred is a SMU alum, so we kind of looked at that option. And I thought about UTA, and I said, I don't know anybody in the UTA art department, but as in so much in life, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so I thought, wait a minute, I know somebody at UTA in the art department, and that's Kenda North. And Kenda's in the back there. Wait, raise your hand, Kenda. Yeah. So Kenda is the former head of the art department here, right? And was faculty member for many years.
Yep.
Kenda and I had served on some a nonprofit board in Oak Cliff. We're neighbors, basically. She and her husband ride bikes. I ride bikes with her husband occasionally. But anyway, I reached out to Kenda, and she said, well, I think I can get you connected with somebody. And she did. And, the rest is kind of history, I guess. Yeah. Do you want to add anything, or?
Well, and part of our motivation was to expand on Jeff Sohn's thinking was how can we engage a university in a certain way where it's not just they're exhibiting our art, but we are benefiting the institution. And that's a lot of the early discussions we had were how can we engage your students?
Yeah.
How can we introduce a younger generation, newer generation to Texas art, but then also create a benefit for them? And I hopefully we'll be able to discuss some of that aspect, but that's really where it really seemed to connect with everybody involved. Is there's benefits to TACO, there's benefits to the art department, and it was a fun series of conversations as we started to connect on those thoughts.
Well, that's perfect, because what I wanted to pivot to was having Cheryl talk a bit about how she got excited about this and could see that component of the win-win and the benefit for the students. And so, Cheryl, I wanted to ask you if you could talk to us a little bit more about how you see this helping our students and delivering on our mission of presenting, art and contemporary art as a kind of pivot to all of this to help activate our space. Absolutely.
So that was one of the biggest things that we wanted to honor, was not only the mission for TACO, but the mission for the art history department. And then our own galleries here have missions. And downstairs, of course, our historic gallery, the gallery at UTA, is a modern contemporary mission. And so we had to figure out, how do we balance that with this very lengthy, magnificent history of Texas art. And over my visits to Caseta, what I realized is early Texas is a very massageable term. And even just at the last Caseta, we were introduced to ancient pictographs of the early indigenous and proto-Native Americans of Texas and Mexico. So it has this really broad, incredible opportunity to it. And of course, I love projects. I love to create and then execute and then see a success come to life. And nothing better than in the faces of my students and in their successes and achieving those goals. And so many of them that are here, that you're seeing in these pictures that have gone on to incredible careers at the Amon Carter, at the Dallas Museum of Art, the Arlington Museum of Art, going on to graduate studies, both here locally in Fort Worth, in Dallas, and even those that are reaching out for international studies the way that I did, getting over abroad, like Dr. Davis did to London. And so I love to put together these projects that are not only enriching in a scholarly way, but I am a blue collar girl. My parents worked hard. We are Arlingtonites. And I learned so many life skills by working hard. But there's so many things that modern younger generations don't know about craftsmanship, about building things, about putting their hands on the art. Because so many times when we go in the museum, there's a docent or a security guard there waiting. Don't you touch that. They're scared to death. And so in my graduate studies, really funny story was that they put the art right in your hands. And they don't tell you how much it's worth until afterwards. And it's an incredible, building of confidence when someone handed me a $7 million Byzantine ivory Oliphant, and as a medievalist, that changed my life, that they trusted me with that they knew that I could do it. And so that's what I'm doing, is I want them to see, I know they can do it. I know they have the skills. And together, we're building that. We're enriching that through these projects, moving paintings. If you've seen our beloved Big O out front, massive 8 and 9 foot long paintings all over campus constantly, installing satellite exhibitions, working to learn about care and management of sculptures, paintings, photographs, all of these wonderful traditions of art. These are our future art-worthy professionals. And so that big project goal there, that I think is what has fulfilled our mission. But we did have a really good time curating that day. Many of our students were dogged defenses of their favorites, arguing back and forth about why this one has to be in the show. Some of them, becoming very almost defiant in the debate aspect of what art should be, what Texas art can be, and how it's viewed by them as our future generations, because they've got a whole different set of ideas that we didn't have. And that's what led, in fact, to that theme that you see there, a cause for concern. And that was built out of two of our students' very strong interests in nature. One of our students was very interested in these repetitive natural disasters that we experience. We had our own little mini dust bowl just last year, and that 100th anniversary is coming up quick. So this historical connotations were really heightened by the modern and contemporary perspectives of the students themselves. And then that matched in with the mission. And Dr. Davis has a really keen eye for aligning historical with contemporary as well.
Thank you. Well, I think the thing that was so exciting was getting to see students coming for a first time to appreciate this breadth of what Texas art encompasses. And that was the thing that was so thrilling when we got to get together at different intervals to see how the different cohorts and student groups were reviewing the exposure they'd had on the visits to the collections and identifying, well, how do we put together a long list of potential artworks that might be viable for the exhibition? How do we start the debate that leads to the development of the short list? And so what I'd love to hear from both of you is, what was your experience of those visits that the students made to the collections? And what have you heard from Taco members about this project? Because this has been a huge collaboration across Taco and those very many students. So I think everyone would love to hear a little bit about what kind of feedback you've had and your own experience of it.
Sure. So I think, was my house the first stop?
Number one?
Yeah, I think I was the first stop. So I remember looking out the window as Cheryl arrived with the students, and she was coaching them. Now, don't do this, don't do that. I could see her teacher mode kicks in. But no, the students were great. I talked just a little bit about my collection once the students came there. And then I said, hey, you guys just wander around. If you got questions, let me know. And I'm always happy if someone comes to my house who has an appreciation for art. As a collector, that's something, because there's a lot of research that we do as collectors. You're hoping to get that great painting or great print. And so to have someone come that appreciates that is always a wonderful thing. And we had, I think there were a few questions, but not that many. I think they were just absorbing, and then they took photos of pieces that spoke to them and used that along with the other visits to develop the themes. So, but yeah, that was basically my experience.
And I was a part of the Fort Worth tour, which was after the Dallas tour. And so the students had a little experience on visiting the collections. One of the things I thought was kind of funny is it was difficult to get them to leave to go to the next collection. You could tell, boy, they really appreciated this. And I had a couple people that came up to me and said, it's funny, when I first learned that we were going to be looking at Texas art, I was just visualizing it's cowboys on horseback and these kind of things. And so just being exposed to all this has given me a whole new perspective on Texas art and appreciation of Texas art, which, again, on our mission statement, that's one of the goals. So it was wonderful to hear that. I just saw, to Russ's point, people locked in on certain things, say, that just really connects to me. And other people say, that just really connects to me. And so it was fun to watch that, because knowing that there was going to be this curatorial debate going on proposed themes for the exhibition, I thought, well, this is really going to be interesting to hear how the students are pulling all of their themes together and comparing them and contrasting them to other students. So it was really a fun process. And I think all the Taco members who opened their homes to the students, I think really appreciated the students going through and the appreciation and manners. I mean, just they were just such a good group to have in the homes, and so, as Russ said, it's always nice to have people come in and appreciate your art.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And we're really proud of the work that the students did. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about that theme development, because that was always the kind of gamble that we were undertaking, because there's such disparate artworks within each of these collections. The students could go in many, many different directions, and yet we needed to make sure that the project would end with some kind of comprehensible through line, that it would make sense as an exhibition, and that each section would have a coherence. And so that was one of the things that we really talked about with the students throughout this multi-semester project, was that thinking from the very outset, what might be the way in which you would make connections as you're making selections. So as you mentioned, Fred, sometimes you just have that road to Damascus moment in front of an artwork and it moves you and you have such a deep and rich connection. You think that's got to be included. But if it's a real outlier, how do you then fold that into the narrative that the curatorial component demands? And how do you make sure that there's going to be a through line so that any kind of visitor can come and take away something that has some comprehensibility to it? And that was a really fun part of this whole process, was seeing how the students started to group things and started to propose thematics, such that then we could have these rich conceptual discussions about what would the overarching theme of the show be and how would you have these sub-themes within it. I think they've been enormously successful in that part of the project. And so I would just love to hear a little bit about what you guys see when you see the exhibition, in terms of how it has pulled together. And what do you think that helps tell us about the richness of Texas art?
First of all, I thought the way the show is hung is fabulous. It really think the students did a great job. Yeah. I thought the themes that were chosen were strong themes, and the sequencing of the works in the gallery really make a lot of sense. I love the way that the pieces are given space to breathe, so to speak, not too clustered together, so you have time to enjoy each work. I think that's especially well done. And overall, I can't say enough about the job that was done with Cheryl and her students.
And I would agree with Russ's comments there. And also, having walked in this morning and talked to other taco members who have seen the exhibition, the first comment was, "This is fabulous. That everybody did such a good job. This is just wonderful. The space is wonderful. The everything about this is fantastic." So I think that's a real congratulations to the students who put in all this curatorial work.
Well, we have kind of a fun question that I think many of our collectors might enjoy thinking about as well, which is, Russ, you mentioned all the research that you undertake individually as you're proceeding in your collection building and thinking about what you might acquire next. So I'd love to hear from both of you, kind of what are the factors that help you determine what might be the next item to acquire? And then also, is there one that haunts you? That's the one that got away, the one that you wake up at 2 a.m. and going, "Dad, gummit, that's the one I never got."
So I'll just mention it to the question of how do I decide what to collect, basically. So like a lot of taco members, I think my collecting taste have changed over time. I think that's true for many of it, if you've been collecting for any period of time. So, but my focus initially, I would say, was more on Impressionism, a little bit of regionalism, and now it's more in the regionalism and thinking more about more modern type works. So my taste have changed over time. So if I'm looking at a particular work that I'm thinking about acquiring, I think about the quality of the work. Where does it fit in that artist overall? Their track record. Is this a 10 for that artist, or is it a 6 or a 7? Do I have a piece already by that artist? Yes or no? How is it going to complement or fit within the themes that I basically collect to? Those are some things. And there's a practical side. Do I have wall space? You collect enough. How much work do you have stuck in closets or under beds? That becomes another thing. Sometimes you think about trading up. I've already got a piece by this artist. Here's a stronger piece. I'll sell the lesser piece to go for a stronger piece. So those are some of the considerations that I tend to think about.
And from my collecting, I guess I'm a little bit more contemporary. I started out as regionalist, and then I'd say the majority of my collection is modernist, but now I've been buying a few abstractions. So I think that's probably a pretty typical progression for a lot of collectors as they get more comfortable seeing things that originally you would say, my daughter could do that, and you begin to appreciate the art as you learn more about it. And of course, wall space is a big issue, and all the things that Russ talked about. I have kind of a different theme to my collection. My wife and I love going to New Mexico and the Four Corners, and so part of what we have in our collection is Texas artists that, because obviously, especially pre-air conditioning, would spend the summer in New Mexico or Colorado or whatever, and so I really like to look for paintings that the Texas artists did in those areas, and it is something that we look at the wall and say, okay, I can't wait till we go out there, next summer or whatever. And so that's part of the connection, that it's not just appreciating the painting, but also thinking about this is what we are going to be doing, and maybe we need to now travel to this spot to see what this looks like today. And so art has a lot of different aspects that can work itself into the way you look at life and how you're going to be spending time in places in the future. The one thing on a totally different topic, because I wanted to make sure I mentioned, we've been talking about the uniqueness of this exhibition and the curatorial aspect of the students. I did some searching on the internet, and I have not found any other university that has made a connection like this to any collecting group, that has allowed their students to curate these things. So this is really something special that UTA is doing, and I think that we should really congratulate August and Cheryl for doing that. But I just wanted to make sure that was mentioned, because this it's really, really something unique. And I think when other universities and colleges hear this story, they're going to say, wow, that is a wonderful opportunity for us too. So hopefully that brings about a trend for the art departments.
Like a note to that as well. Yes, absolutely. We here at UTA like to be the firsts. And historically, there's a really funny story that at UTA, they heard UT Austin was preparing to launch an art department. And they purposefully launched theirs the year before UT so that we could have the oldest and be the first to get there. And so being the first of its kind and having this one-of-a-kind opportunity, I did some research too, and there is not a lot of other states that have collecting groups like this. There's no Alaska state art collectors, and now there are smaller groups and clubs, the Santa Fe, New Mexico members, New York City members, but Texas, we are just absolutely unique and very special. And I think that adds to this very much as well.
Well, I don't want y'all to forget the one that got away question. I know we all want to hear the answer to that one.
So I'll share a story along those lines. One of the artists that I think is one of the best Texas artists is a guy named Everett Spruce. A lot of you guys know Spruce. His work, I think, is unique among Texas artists. And he actually was a professor at UT down in Austin, and started here in Dallas. But anyway, I had a print. Owned a couple prints by him, but I didn't have any oil paintings. And his paintings are pricey. So I was at David Dyke's gallery and there was a spruce painting. And I thought, wow, that's a strong piece. But it was on the pricey side, so I hesitated. I was there like on a Tuesday, I think. So I hesitated, and then I think I'd taken a photo, and I texted it to a few other taco members. What do you think? What do you think? Everybody's like, hey, that's a killer piece. You need to go for that. So I called David on Thursday, and he said, Russ, the piece sold. I mean, I was literally sick to my stomach. I was just wiped out. I'm like, I've blown it. I completely blown it. I was just miserable for a week or so, thinking I'm just not gonna have this again. So I said, but I did tell David, I said, look, if for whatever reason the deal doesn't work, let me know. Well, guess what? He calls me about a month later. He said, hey, Russ, they couldn't work out the deal. Do you want it? It's absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have that piece. I still have that in my collection.
Marvelous.
So in that case, it was one that got away that I was able to get back in my collection, and it's not going anywhere. So yeah. So Fred.
This is really a sad subject. I think from a collector's standpoint, I think everybody I talked to about this said, we really, it hits us harder when we miss a piece than when we grab something that we really wanted. It's just the pain of missing out. So I've seen a lot of people at taco meetings looking at things on the wall, and I hear them saying, oh, so that's where it ended up. Okay. Yeah, well, congratulations. So that's something that happens to everybody. And in fact, I had actually bought a spruce, and I was getting information from Everett's widow, who now has passed. And I was talking, and I said, do you have any other paintings that you might be interested in?
Daughter.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, his daughter. Yes, not his daughter. Sorry. And she said, oh, I just sold something that I think you probably like based on what you told me. And then I learned Russ has bought an Alexander Hogue of I think it was the beginning of the Red River up in Colorado, which is the Rio Grande, which is exactly, as you just heard, what I love to collect. So Russ is actually the one that every time I look at,
Guilty.
I think of that Alexander Hogue. So, I'm sure there are plenty of people that would weigh in with various stories on what they lost, but I could go on, but the fact that you were disappointed for a week is, it's, I've got things I look back over 20 years, and those are my dreams at night, to wake up going, yeah, it's a nightmare. So, oh,
Well,
okay. Well, thanks for the question.
Ask him about the owl in this show. This guy, he'll tell. That was a, he got a steal. Let me tell you.
well, I love it. Those are marvelous stories. And I think they speak to the heart of what we all experience, which is getting to live with art just enriches your everyday experience. And the way that we've been able to open that experience up for our students to witness is really marvelous. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you who participated in making this exhibition possible. It's an enrichment for us, for our audience here at the gallery at UTA, but especially for our students. And we're so grateful because of the opportunity it gives them to think about art is not something remote. It's not something behind a velvet rope in a museum. It's something we all have access to, whether we're makers of it or collectors of it. And it is something that brings joy to the everyday life. It requires care and concentration and deep commitment in terms of your resources, your attention, your energy, your curatorial stance. That word comes from the Latin root about care and about caregiving and making sure that we are, in fact, good stewards of that culture that we have been entrusted with protecting and carrying forward. And the joy that we've had from this project has been bringing your marvelous pieces and those artists' wonderful contributions to a wider audience, and to do so through the eyes of our students, for them to see the wonderful ways in which you have those works exhibited in your home, and to think about those intimate connections and how the Texas art that we have exhibited here really tells us a rich story about belonging, history, our modern day, and who we are as Texans, and what it means for us to care about our cultural life. And this exhibition, I think, brings a really wonderful lens to all of those components. And the students have done such a magnificent job of working with you all as an organization and as individual collectors in order to elevate the opportunity for everyone to enjoy this beautiful bringing together in concert of so very many pieces of Texas art. And so we're really grateful. And I'm going to ask Cheryl to close with comments for us. And then I think we have time for questions. And I'm going to hand over to Cheryl now. Thank you.
Well, so many wonderful topics that we could continue to go on about, right? I think that this debate and discussion could last as long as from 1880 to 2026 at this point. But I do want to remind you that not only do we have the incredible exhibition that you're going to see in the gallery at UTA, if you could see what I see, but also I wear many hats, as you know, here in the department, and we have a second exhibition that's upstairs in our visual resource collections and gallery. And I still remember Russ when I told him I was planning 2 exhibitions. He was yes, in a great Texas way. But also, these are lofty goals that we have and maintain for our students, and being able to add even another layer or level to that is very important. So upstairs in our visual resource collections gallery, we have a series and selections of Texas artists from the UTA Fine Art Collections, but also to highlight and honor an artist that we know here locally, Charles Truett Williams. You've probably visited many of his exhibitions. The Amon Carter had a magnificent showing of his work. But I, being a student here myself as an undergraduate many years ago, I used to see his sculpture, Terminal Trio, and wonder about that artwork. Who is that? Where did it come from? It used to be across campus in front of the library. And then about 10 years ago, we had it moved to a better, safer location. And now it's right out here, out front, acting as an ambassador to the fine art building and to our art history department. And then I found out there was more. And that is the worst thing you can ever tell a collection specialist. I grew up as a treasure hunter. That was instilled in me by my father. Loves to metal detect and go searching for the wealth of the world. And that has led me to go searching all across campus to find out, where are these artworks? And I have partnered with our wonderful colleagues at UTA Library Special Collections, who have been assisting me in locating and working with these pieces. So you'll see so many of those upstairs in the collection. And we found more, so there's going to be part 2. Stay tuned for the sequel. But I just want to also recognize that his son, Carl, is here today. And also many faculty members, both past and present, are here today as well. So UTA, we come out strong. We really do in that aspect. And so please make sure that you not only enjoy our downstairs exhibit, but also please go to the second floor to see that as well. That one will be up through August. And I also encourage you to see some of my most beautiful artworks and talk to them, my students. They're here today. They're eager to talk to you about who they are, what they do, what they're passionate about. And I know you have art, and I know you need help with that. And I have incredible interns that can do that for you. And so if you've been kind of, I need some help, Now's the time. Take the chance. Seize the opportunity. As I say, carpe artificium. Seize the art. And make that connection today with many of these wonderful students. And of course, here shortly, we have a wonderful buffet and spread of goodies for you to enjoy and refreshments while you're in and looking at the artworks. But I think Fred has some closing remarks for Taco as well. Thank you so much.
Should we turn it over for questions first, or should I just?
Yeah, do we have questions? Yeah, excellent.
How did the three themes ultimately get decided? Was there a vote, or did?
Well, it was almost a fist fight. They are very passionate, and I think that might be my fault because I'm very passionate about it. But so many, you saw some of those examples of their presentations and their proposals. So many of them just worked so well together to come into play. There were three of them that really worked well into a cause for concern. Several of them really moved into home is where the art is. The most popular one was A State for All Seasons. And, they all talked about what they wanted to see and what was important to them. We had originally started with the idea of flora and fauna. Texas is so big and beautiful. We have such incredible landmarks and symbolic animals and historical sites. And that also was woven in very, very neatly like a tapestry. And then we took quotes and comments because throughout their assignments, they're required to read and research and respond in communication with me. And so I gleaned thoughts and ideas from those direct student insights in order to craft those thematic statements that you saw there. And then we worked together to edit and refine those. And it was just very seamless, really. Once the fist fight was over.
I talk loud.
All right. Teach your voice.
Kind of along the same lines a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about the process of actually selecting the art for the various themes? I mean, were there any pieces that y'all wanted that collectors were reticent to loan? Were there... did they vote on which pieces were included? Because there's obviously more works out there than are in the show. So.
Sure. I've got just a comment, and I'd like to hand it to Dr. Davis because I know she does too. Some of the individuals who answered the call only submitted one. Some, I'm not going to name names, but they won by submitting 26. They were ready for this, to share their art and their collections with the students and with the community at large. And the students were incredibly considerative, democratic in the process. And we realized we could include everyone that submitted if we chose at least one work by at least. But now that then grew because there were some that we had to have in the show. They were either representative of a really important location or time period or an artist that, you had to have. But there were also those that we couldn't include, typically because of care concerns as a collection specialist. If an artwork's made of a very susceptible material or in a delicate condition, that is something that we're going to consider. And then there were aesthetic concerns as well. And so I'll let Dr. Davis speak to that.
So one of the things that was really interesting was at the midway point of this project, we had an entire day that we devoted to a special convocation of the students, and students who'd already graduated and had jobs in museums came back for that special day together with the current students. And we looked at more than 200 images in an iterative fashion across that day. And we had really intriguing debates. And so what happened was we all had advocacy conversations. And so we would go image by image and say, okay, what do we all think about this? And we did votes, but we also did discussions. And then I often would interject and say, okay, well, as an art historian and a curator who also has to wear the hat of being the director for this gallery that's based on contemporary art, we have to think about the goal of the show is broad representation around Texas art and around the collector participation, but we have to have these anchors of modern and contemporary art so that we fulfill our mission for the gallery at UTA. And so that always was going to necessitate that the overarching thematic for the exhibition would need to have sub-themes so that we could have enough of the modern and contemporary pieces that could anchor the show, because we knew there would be a lot of historic artwork. And so in order for me to feel comfortable that we're fulfilling our mission, I felt that was a really kind of key way to kind of stake our position, that it's got these fundamentals, and then we're spooling these stories around those anchors. And so that was, again, why it was thematically driven as opposed to chronologically organized, because it had to have that hub of those contemporary pieces. So then that offered a framework for those conversations and advocacy discussions. And it was wonderful because the students were fierce on, no, absolutely, this one needs to be included, and here's why. And it was marvelous to hear the variety of reasons that they would have supporting why a particular work was of importance for the kind of exhibition they wanted to make sure we were having. And then I occasionally would also jump in and say, well, I think this piece, I bet in person, looks even more impactful than you're imagining it does, and would have this wonderful relationship with some of the others that you have fought for. And so I know that Cheryl might tell on me. I won't tell you, there's a piece in the show that I just love that I was adamant, and luckily our assistant director, Patricia Healy, for the gallery agreed with me, so we won. And so we got that one piece in, which was a little eccentric, but I think has worked out beautifully in the show. But it was so marvelous because it was truly collaborative, and everyone came with such a generous spirit. And like I say, the fact that students took the day off work to come back after graduation to make sure that they were here for how we were going to start shaping those themes really speaks to the unique quality of this opportunity and how important it's been to everyone. Right.
Yes, and I there were a couple of individuals that I did reach out to in talking about contemporary works, and so thank you very much to those two individuals. Billy Hassel was pivotal in helping us to fulfill that mission for those contemporary anchors, and then also the Altons. So thank you very much for that. And then, I just want to also hand it off to Fred, but say that, in this process, these students, they have just learned and taken on so much through your generosity and through your sharing. So when we keep saying those two words, collaborative and community, those two, I think, have really proven very strongly. We knew that we had that here, but now with Taco, we can have it for much longer. So if you're disappointed that you didn't see this work in your collection on show, or that this theme didn't happen, don't worry, you're not getting rid of me yet. And we are looking forward to many future exhibitions and exhibiting further with you all, so don't be disappointed.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to ask Fred now to share a few taco points, and then we have our refreshments.
Well, Cheryl, I'm glad you said that, because we were going to put you on spot and ask if we could talk about future exhibitions. So wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. And also thank you, August and Cheryl, for putting this together and providing us with the opportunity to discuss this, visualize this exhibition, everything about it. So thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
And also just a couple of quick announcements. I wanted to say thank you for last month's exhibition at the Amon Carter. Catherine Allen, the docent there, who's on the first row here, led one of the groups through. So Catherine's a taco member, so thank you for that. And are BB and Billy here today? I know they loaned some pieces today, but wanted to thank them for hosting the taco meeting at their home. It It was a complex meeting that could have had so many things go wrong with it, and it went through very smoothly. So it was a lot of fun. And I also wanted to announce next month's meeting is at Ed Prohaska's house in Forest Hills on the east side of White Rock Lake in Dallas, and that's going to be on March 8th. So Ed is here. So as you walk around the exhibition, you can hit Ed up for some questions on what his collection is like. He's got a wonderful house and a wonderful collection. Also, we've got the exhibition catalogs that were made and published, and they are true catalogs, much like our 25th anniversary taco catalog, and they are free for taco members. And if you want extra editions, they're available, that you can buy those, and they will all be over at that desk in the gallery on a little side table. We've got a taco banner there, so they'll be available as soon as our panel discussion is over.
Sorry.
And make sure that if you are a student curator and you participated in this project, you pick up your catalog,
Yes, right.
because you deserve something for. So make sure that you pick up your catalog from the tape. Thank you all so much. Now let's go. Call the salt. Thank you.
And also, that the ocean has to thank you so much. Enjoy. Sounds like I just want to thank you. It was a lovely, and you're so lucky that accent, and that's enthusiastic. I'm a child. I don't have that. Well, that's very common. So anyway, it was lovely. Thank you. Enjoy.